What's up, folks? This is Acid Roots. We're going to talk about Deuce's second album now, which is Invincible. I said I was kind of in question as to whether or not I was going to review it, but this was actually kind of the secret little releases that I wanted to pay attention to. So, Deuce was a rogue member of Hollywood Undead, and he had a decently successful album with 9 Lives back in 2012. He's kind of been lurking, laying in the cut, not really making too much noise, but still at least being around. And that's kind of what we've been dealing with for the past 5 years. So apparently, some folks have said that he put out this album Invincible, or attempted to, back in 2015. It leaked, something to that effect, and I looked up some reviews, and there were actually reviews from a couple years ago of what that was the supposed album. So the problem with it is I know Deuce seems like the person who probably released a lot of songs in between, but I just don't think we really got like that huge single. So once again, his highest charting single is still America. And, as I continued to look into that, I thought, you know, is this album automatically going to be a dud? Because I know so many of you out there have known an album has the first or second album has all the hits on it, but then they do eventually put out an album and it doesn't have the hits. So it kind of has to strengthen your chutzpah in terms of whether or not you're going to support this artist still. And I think obviously, Deuce is not one of those folks. I didn't figure that he would be. Deuce is not someone that you should just abandon just because he doesn't chart. I don't know if anyone was faced with this like I was thinking, but I was glad to see that the music was still good. So, yeah, as it continued, I was kind of hoping for a song like America, but he does actually deliver, and that's the important thing. 5 years later, it's not as if his skills have hit, whether or not this is a sophomore slump. I mean, the whole thing about it is that it's more of a question of, hang on, my internet disconnected. It's more of a question of, does he have hits on the album more so? Because I'm not expecting Deuce to drop a classic album. That's the whole thing there is, like, with 9 Lives, which I just reviewed, late last month, that album did not have, it was like 11 songs long, but it did have more than 3 or 4 hits on there. It probably had like 5, maybe 6 at most, but that was still half the album. And this is kind of the formula that Hollywood Undead does, if you don't know. They kind of do the brash, arrogant, abrasive songs, and then they have the more thought-provoking, sensitive, and more meaningful songs that they kind of spice in. And that, with those two things, it's kind of like, well, you have to have both of each. You either like some of those or you don't, and if you don't like it, you only like half the album. So that was where I said, I was proud of, I was glad for Deuce that he dropped, good songs just like the old days of Hollywood Undead and 9 Lives, but I'm still not quite in the mood for some of these more introspective songs. So luckily, 6 songs, 7 songs, which is about how many I liked on here, is more than enough. And, the only it just depends if, obviously, I think the main thing is I just want to hear Deuce on the radio again. That's kind of the unfortunate part. It seems like nowadays with most of these people, you have to search for them more than they are just available, which is kind of a disappointment. But yeah, so I'll talk about some of the songs. When I look on Spotify, the most popular songs that I am seeing is "Here I Come," "Bitch This Is It," and "World on Fire." Now, each one of these got more than 100,000 views. "World on Fire" is one of the 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 less brash songs. But Here I Come kind of reminds me of like Been Through Hell by Hollywood Undead and Undead and some of these type songs. That's Here I Come. That's also Hell's Gonna Break Loose. You know, these first couple songs just immediately kick the ball off, or kick things off rather well. So I couldn't tell the singles. I mean, it was surprising just because it didn't have 5 or 6 singles backing it like some of these cats normally do. So I was like, what's going on here? But uh, yeah. So like I said, those were the 3 most popular songs. A few more would probably be Invincible and Bitch, This Is It. These are definitely some more. Basically, the first 4 songs they have good riffs and they sound like Deuce that has the hits behind him. Some of these like America and trying to remember some of his other ones. Just some of the songs that you probably would have heard off of 9 Lives that were in like the first half. Maybe one of the songs that had Jeffree Star on there, that sort of stuff. But yeah, those first 4 songs do that, and then yeah, so I would say a few more songs. I'm going to list the songs that I recommend that you listen to. Now, obviously, I'm starting to realize that, of course, things have opinions to them. So, obviously, you take this with a grain of salt. But some of the ones you ought to try: Here I Come, Hell's Gonna Break Loose, Bitch, This Is It, Gone Tomorrow, Here Today, My Buddy, Invincible, Bad Attitude. Those are some had the spark to them, and they said good feels. I mean, it really, for some of you that have, been rocking with Deuce for a long time, it's pretty exciting to hear this sort of thing. I was actually surprised that he decided to put out this second album. I actually thought he was gonna be a one album. We probably would have forgotten about him 3 or 4 years from now, supposing his last album came out in 2012. So it's good that this is kind of like a shot in the arm for him. And or something else I wanted to say. Yeah, so it like you can tell by the album cover that he is wanting to keep his image, and that's good that he hasn't softened. Like when you think of Eminem, what's currently going on, this actually is kind of like a surprise holiday winner for me, just because this year has just been so awkward trying to adjust to all these people who are trying to become more introspective. So it's just been, a hell of a roller coaster ride, and it's not really one that I'm terribly interested in. Of course, with everyone not doing, I mean, I don't mind new, but I just don't want new in the format of, you know, it just depends. Like if you like Coca-Cola, and you're not going to want to switch to milk, and that's kind of the thing is, just a complete switch up to something. You have to, if you want people to go with change, you have to ease them into it. And I just think that's kind of the thing. So I'm glad Deuce doesn't do that. I'm glad he eases you into the changes that he's trying to put. Even if I were to listen to some of these softer songs and more, personal type songs, I at least have the ability to say I want to. It's not so much that I'm being forced to, like, it's all personal and no fun to it. If I want to listen to those songs, I'm more than welcome to choose that on my own, which is why I'm glad that half the album is like that. But I don't like being forced to have to do it. So, that's definitely a lesson I think a lot of the rappers out could probably learn. Rappers, musicians, whoever, whichever genre you listen to. So alright, so I give this album, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 just because I am glad for what Deuce has actually been doing lately. the fact that he's still here, the fact that he can, make hot rock songs, and uh, he kind of is not, he was pretty spastic back in the Nine Lives days. It didn't really feel like there was, this, titties, titties, titties songs all over the place, which, maybe it's not for strip clubs this time, but it still feels like, it's a good, it does feel like it's cohesive. So, which, saying that with most of the Hollywood Undead, it feels like most of these albums would probably be 2 out of 5 albums rather than 3 or 4 out of 5 or even 5 out of 5. So I'm glad to be able to say that this feels at least above average. So the future, this just came out, and can the record be topped? Well, I do think this is probably slightly better than Nine Lives, even though that one probably has the nostalgia attached to it. So subscribe for more fun.